guys. So, one thing, that is today very special, I have to tell you, because you have to introduce yourself, I think.
Yeah, I will.
Because not all of you know this person, or does everyone know this person here in front? You can shake your head, or can nod.
Okay.
Or can raise your hand. Okay, because I can introduce you shortly. This is Jan Martin. He's the former leader of SMD, and normally he wouldn't have been here because he's now married, he's in Karlsruhe, and he works there. But sometimes student life also goes to an end, and he's here in Chemnitz because he has submitted his master thesis. So he's right on the edge of not being a student anymore, and it's nice that you visit us.
Yeah, it's nice that you're hosting me again. Okay, thanks for this very nice introduction. Now you know already my name. I think most of you guys know me, but I'm also happy to introduce myself to all of you who may not know me yet because you're new here. So I am a student of TU Chemnitz since bachelor. I'm a German coming from this city, so I'm a native Chemnitz person. And after my high school degree, I decided to study here. That was the best decision for my short life I could ever make because I had a very nice student time here. And if you're new at TU Chemnitz, I can assure you that you will also have a very good student time here. At least if you join SMD events, because they make the student life really beautiful. I've been to SMD since 2017, so it's almost 6 years now. Wow, time really flies. And a lot of things have happened in this time, really nice memories, nice friendships. With a lot of people in this room, I still have very good contact and friendship. Now I live in Karlsruhe. If you ever stop by there, feel free to pay me and my wife a visit. We would be very happy to welcome you. But yeah, as Niklas said, now I'm back, and I was already here, I think 3 weeks ago, and I was talking about a Bible story from the Old Testament, from the first part of the Bible. And now I was I agreed to make a topic again, and I decided I would like to speak about another story from the Bible, but this time coming from the second part of the Bible, the New Testament. I don't know whether you know something about the Bible already, so to give you a very general impression, if you have a Bible in your hand, like this one, there are two parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament part is everything written before the birth of Jesus. Okay, everything which is older than, let's say, approximately 2,000 years is in the Old Testament. Everything which is written afterwards is in the New Testament. So that's why we make this distinction. Today, I would like to talk about the story from the New Testament, and I have sent this story already in the WhatsApp group. You should already receive the message. The first one includes the English version, the second one the German version, but that's for later. Okay, but before we dig into the topic and what's, maybe you're also wondering why I'm talking about Bible at all. Let me tell, I'm a Christian, and SMD is also a Christian group, and we like to discuss questions of faith and life because we believe, and that's also my opinion, and you can also discuss with me later if you like, that the things which are written in the Bible is not just from an old book, like we have sing in the song before, ancient words. Yeah, they're ancient words, of course. The fact is that they're older than 2,000 years, most of them. But I think there's also some relevance for today. And to show you this a little bit, I want to just discuss a story from the Bible with you and also show you what could be the practical implication for nowadays life as a student at TU Chemnitz, who lives maybe in the storm or enjoys life here. So let's talk about the different topic in the beginning, about gambling. Who of you knows gambling? Everybody knows what this is? Okay. Question, who of you does gambling in his free time? Okay. Third question, who of you comes from a country where gambling is illegal in general? Yep, that's quite a lot, right? Okay. In Germany, it's not the case. In Germany, gambling is not illegal. In opposite, the government even earns a lot of money because of gambling. We have something which is called Lotto. Okay? A lot of Germans will know Lotto. Lotto, yeah, maybe has this reputation to be a game for older people, I don't know. But in a lot of kiosks or shops in Germany, you can buy some Lotto papers, which you can fill in. You can cross some numbers. I even don't know the thing from 1 till 49 or something like this. There are 6 numbers. You can cross them, and then there's a lottery where they will select the numbers by incident. And if you get all of them right, we say it's a Sechser im Lotto, ein Sechser im Lotto gewinnen, then you're a rich man. You can earn millions. But the problem is, there's some problems with this game. And the first problem is, this is a news I read last year. I thought it's quite interesting. A lot of people who win the Sechser im Lotto, who win this millions of money, they lose it later because they waste it. They don't know how to deal with money. And it's 80% of all lotto winners. Okay? So 80% of all the people who win in this gambling and who really get a millionaire from one day to the other lose it because they don't know how to spend such a big amount of money. And even this second bad news is the chance to win is 1 to 20 million. Okay? Chance to win is 1 to 20 million. This means if you are good in math, you most likely won't play Lotto. From a rational thinking, it makes no sense. There are a lot of other chances which are higher. But maybe you think, okay, I'm a lucky person, I can do it. 6.87 million Germans might think that way, because it's quite common in Germany. But it's not very, from a logical viewpoint. It makes no sense. And you can see who is the real winner of this gambling. It's the gambling provider, okay? It's not so much the people who play, because most of them, they end up losing a lot of money. So that's the problem with Lotto. These are just some facts. Of course, there are also other implications, that it can make addictive, and people waste a lot of money, and a lot of hardships are also connected with this. That's why also there are some regulations, and in Germany the advertising for Glücksspiel, like we say, always says that Glücksspiel kann süchtig machen. They have to say that. It means that Glücksspiel can make addictive. But a lot of people play it. And as you see already, the German name for gambling is Glücksspiel. I know some of you people are here also because you want to learn German. Maria does this great German course before, and that's why I also decided I want to make the slides today in 2 languages, so you can also compare. It's all the same, just the one is English, the other is German. The German word for gambling is Glücksspiel, okay? And Glück means like luck, lucky. And Spiel, game, play a game. And it's interesting that in our language we have this name, because you can think in 2 ways of this. The first way how you could understand the meaning is that you need luck to win. It's not about strategy or logic, so you need just pure luck to win this game, which is also kind of true, because there's no strategy how you can win Lotto, which is rationally profounded. But the second meaning could also be that it makes you happy, or you can understand it in the way that it promises you some happiness. If you play gambling, it promises you to be happy, to have a happy life. Both of them could be understood as the meaning, or could be understood as a meaning. And behind this idea is this simple equation that luck equals money. Okay, luck leads to money. That's what the Lotto players hope for. And money maybe leads to freedom, financially, personally, because you can choose where you want to live, you can choose what car you want to drive, you can choose where to spend the holidays. This all leads to higher living standard, and this means being happy, right? This is also what the advertisement is always promoting, what people are saying. Of course, not everybody, but this is like the general idea behind. And that's why also a lot of people, they try this gambling, because they want money, and they think if I get $1 billion or $1 million or whatever, a lot of money, I'm happier than before. I'm happier than now. Now I don't have the money, so not so many opportunities. Maybe you are more rational or more clever, then you don't play gambling. But there are some other ideas as well. Like a lot of us, we are students, we are most likely supposed to be like good money earners later. If you finish the degree and everything goes well, chances are pretty high from a rational view that you earn a lot of money later, or more than the average, let's say it like this. And there's also this idea, right? You want to earn a lot of money as an engineer or whatever, because then you have the same, like you have money, freedom, higher living standards, being happy, maybe. That's also what you think about. And that's why also people try to focus on a lot of these things. Other people might focus on relationships. All of these things have one in common. They promise somehow that they can make you happy. More or less. They tell you, okay, if you do this, you can like get happy. We have a German saying like that Sex, Macht und Geld ist das, was allen gefällt. It means like sex, power and money is this one what everybody likes, because it promises like you can get a happy person, you can get fulfillment in your heart. But I want to question this. Is it really like this? Is it really a good strategy to invest in these things in life only and then become a happy person? Question is, what does us really make happy? Is it this, or is there something more? And this question brings us now to the Bible story, which we want to discuss tonight. Our Bible story is a parable which Jesus told when he was on this earth. Maybe you know, we Christians, we believe in Jesus. And Jesus was someone who lived on this earth 2,000 years ago. There's a lot to say about Jesus. But one thing we want to focus tonight is that he was telling a lot of stories when he was here. And the stories we call also parables, because the stories Jesus used to tell people something about God. How God is, what is the character of God, and how he actually designed the relationship between God and the humans. And these parables, which Jesus told us, there are a lot of them in the Bible, they have a meaning for us and explain the important principles of life and the relationship with God. That's what they're supposed to be. Okay, maybe you think, okay, that sounds very theoretic. So without further ado, just dig in into the history, into the story which you want to read tonight. I sent the text already in the WhatsApp group, as I've said. You can also find it in the Bible in Luke 15, verses 11 till 32. And I just would like to ask that anybody from here could maybe read the English text. Maybe every person who wants to read can read one slide, and then we just change. So who would like to start? Just the English one. Yeah. You can just read. Yeah.
And he said, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me. And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country, and there he squandered his property in reckless living.
And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of the country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything.
And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pig ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, How many of my father hired servants have more than enough bread? But I perish here with hunger. I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have signed against heaven and before you.
I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of the hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.
But the father said to his servants, "Bring quickly the best robe, and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand, and shoes on his feet. And bring the fattened calf, and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead, and he is alive again. He was lost and is found." And they began to celebrate.
Now his older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, "Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and sound." But he was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and entreated him. But he answered his father, "Look, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a young goat, that I might celebrate with my friends."
But when the son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him. And he said to him, "Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad, for this your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found."
Thank you a lot for all of those who contributed in reading. Now I would like to ask you if there are any questions about this text, or anything you did not understand, a word or anything, or if someone could just summarize what we have read. Maybe just part of it, but if you like, you can just summarize what you have understood.
Well,
Yeah.
so the father is a nice guy, and he was merciful to his son who went away and put the money away. And he runs to him and he made a big party for him. But the first son, he was not so happy with the situation. And the father has to explain him why he should be happy and not so, not so have bad feelings against the first son. And the main thing is that the father was happy that the first son came back, and we should also, if we feel like the second son, or the first son, and we are not happy for the other second son, actually we should feel happy that he came back.
Yeah, thank you. You said a very interesting point that the story is actually about two sons, right? Because normally we call it the story of the lost son. That's why I was also writing it in the beginning. You can also call it the story of the two sons, and we will dig into this later a little bit. Thank you. Yeah, that was good summary already. Any questions? Something you did not understand from the text side? Okay, good. If they are later, you can also ask me, of course. Then we would like to now go through the stories and find out what it means for us, okay? So let's start. I distinguish the story in 4 parts. The first part is the going away part. So there was this younger son who asked for the heritage of the father. And I would like to ask you, some of you come from countries where I know parents, they have a lot of authority and the family is really important. What would you do, or what would your father do if you ask him for your heritage? Would he give it to you? Would he say, yeah, okay? Would it, okay, let me ask in a different way. Would it be a question you normally ask? Never, right? Because it means you declare your father as dead, right? Somehow. Okay, in Germany we sometimes have the practice that the parents send the heritage already to the children when they are still alive, but it's because of tax reasons. And then it's mostly the initiative is coming from the father's side, not from the children's side. But yeah, this is completely dishonoring, right? It's a really dishonoring thing. The son asked the father for the heritage. And this is the beginning of the story which Jesus tells. there was a son who was so rude that he declared the father as death. He basically told the father, I don't care about you anymore, you're death for me, just give me my heritage, I want to leave. And the father, he does this. So the father seems to be a very humble person, very nice person. And the son goes and he spends all what he has. That's how the story tells it. If we can go here, and there he squandered his property for reckless living. That's how this translation says. And so everything he has, the heritage of the father, which is actually also supposed to be something meaningful, something you want to keep, something you should be careful about, just wasted away. Maybe you think, okay, that's a strange story, but as I said in the beginning, the story has some implication about God. And when Jesus tells the story, he refers the Father as God. Okay, that's the meaning of the story. The Father symbolizes God in the story. And I would like to ask you two questions. The first question is, how do you think about God? Do you believe that there is a God? And if so, if you believe in a God, then does he matter in your daily life? Or is this relationship maybe more also like from the Son? That you want all the benefits from a relationship with God? Yeah, I want to have a successful life, I want to have money in my life, I would want to be happy, and I pray if I have a problem. Okay, now was exam time, maybe we prayed more than outside of the exam time, but does he really play a significant role in my personal life? Or do I think about God like a toy I can use sometimes and then I put it away again? This is the behavior which the son in this story actually applies for his relationship with the father. When he needs him, he asks him, but then he just runs away. And the son is wasting the money, like the lottery winners, 80% of them. He cannot deal with it. And that's also an interesting question. How do we actually spend the things which God gives for us? The resources we have, our money, of course, also, but also our talents which we have, the things we are good in, the gifts we have, also time we have. How do we spend them? Do we spend them for something useful, for something also which honors God? Or do we also just waste it with TikTok, I don't know, or some other things? Yeah, I don't say it's wrong to watch TikTok or anything. It's not like something, but just ask the question for yourself. No self-criticism needed here. I also should ask it to myself. Do we use the resources we have, all the gifts we have in life, everything we have in life? Do we use it in a meaningful way, or do we just throw it away as we just live for fun and then it's over? Okay, the story goes on with the second part, which I call the downfall. It ends like it has to end. All money was spent at some point, and the former friends, which maybe were partying with this guy, suddenly are no friends anymore. No one is there who helps. And at the end, the Bible says this guy sells himself to a stranger. Or some translations say, some editions of Bible translations say, he hires himself to a stranger. But the German translation says he sells himself to a stranger. So at the end, he's not free. That is the message here. He thinks that he's free. He gets the heritage of the father. He runs away. He wastes the money. But at the end, he ends up to be a slave from someone else, from a stranger. He lost his father, who was like in a good relationship with him, and goes to a stranger who does not care about him. And he becomes the slave responsible for the pigs, which in Jewish culture, Jesus was talking here to Jewish people, this was the worst job you can have. Also something very dishonoring, to be responsible for the pigs. And how can we apply this for our daily life? Maybe you also think sometimes, you're disappointed from people, or also things you have trusted before. For example, maybe you helped somebody for the exam, or you helped someone with the paper and homework, You're thinking, oh nice, there will be a friendship relationship afterwards, but then later this person doesn't care about you anymore. Or there are a lot of scandals where people invest in banks or in cryptocurrency, and sometimes the cryptocurrency is away or the banks are away. This also happens in our life a lot, that we spend ourselves or our things to someone or something, and then it turns out that this was the wrong decision. Maybe it's also good to think about this point. Where do we do this? And when we do this, how can we stop this? How can we end this? Because, that's not what we are supposed to be. And then the turning point comes, verses 17 till 24. The Bible says the son comes to himself when he was in this very bad position that he even had not enough food to eat anymore. He thinks. First time he starts to think about his life. That's also something very human. I think it is very happening a lot. People think about questions like God and belief when they're in a bad situation, when they don't feel well. When we feel well, when we are rich, when our life is smooth, then a lot of people think, why do I have to consider all these questions? But when it's really, really hard and tough times, then people start to think about this, which is kind of sad, because it's, I think, better to think about this when we are doing fine, so that the bad times, maybe we are better prepared for them. But at the end he decides to go back to the father, not to be the son anymore. He knows that what he has done is too dishonoring and too shameful, but at least he could be a slave there. This was his idea. Then he would maybe feel better than before, when he was the slave of the stranger. So he shows repentance, and he knows about his errors. That's also a point what he clearly says. But the father, he accepts him again as the son. He even runs against him. He really welcomes him again. And this is something unexpected, because the father had all the right to dismiss his son. There was no obligation of the father to take him in again. But he does it. He takes him in again, and he welcomes him as nothing happened. Just he was there. And not even this, he organizes a celebration. So, let's be the family. To summarize the story a little bit with pictures. The father in the story, we don't read so much about it, but it seems that he has quite of a big territory, because he has some cows, and later we read the older son was out in the fields. So we can imagine that he has like a farm or a territory. We don't know so much, but there was like a place where the father lives and what all belongs to the father, the slaves and so on, the family. And then the younger son, he thinks, no, I don't want to be there anymore, and runs away. Out of this area of the father, where he can also have a relationship with the father. And he's doing fine there for quite a time, and doing well. He thinks at least like this, but no, it does not end like this, it ends bad, as we discussed. Then he has something we call repentance, Buße, Umkehr, turn back to the father, and tries to go back, and also gets welcomed again from the father. Well, I show you this picture, because this kind of idea we find in the Bible many times. And this kind of idea was also not strange for the audience where Jesus was speaking. Actually, this kind of idea is the story of the Bible in itself. In the beginning of the Bible, if you open the 3rd chapter of the Bible, very in the beginning, we read about another area, a physical area. It was called the Garden of Eden. When God created the people, he made 2 people at the beginning, Adam and Eve, and he set them into this garden like a paradise and told them that they can do whatever they like. They had all the freedom, and they should even harvest and expand themselves. Just one thing they should not do, eat from a certain fruit. There was a limitation, but this was the only limitation. But what they did is, we know the story, maybe you know it, they ate from this fruit, so they had to leave the garden eventually. They were kicked out. Out from this place where the Father was, and where also the relationship with God could happen. And this happened because of something which we call sin. So the story of the lost son is also the story of humanity, of mankind. Because the Bible is telling that we all have done the same thing with God in some way. We have sinned against God. We have like declared God as dead, maybe not with our words, but with our deeds, what we have done. And yeah, we are in the same position. And yeah, maybe we can live good outside of God. It can last for a certain time. You can have a good life on this world, no problem. If you're rich, if you have you live in a safe environment, this is possible. But you know, the story of the son ends not very well, and that's the point. It ends not very well, and that is what the Bible and also Jesus wants to tell. But there's also another person involved in the story, and that's the fourth and last part. That's the older brother. When the older brother came back, when the younger brother came back, the younger son came back, the older brother was unhappy. And I can understand this. I mean, if this would happen, like a family member is so rude, and then he goes away, and then he comes back so many years later maybe. We don't know so much about the time, but it seems that some time has passed by. And he comes back, and then the father just welcomes him and says, yeah, we even make a celebration, and we will slaughter the best calf for you, and as nothing happened before, and you will all be happy. And I was the older brother. I worked all the years on the field. I was obedient to the father. I did all the hard work. Yeah, it's understandable. I would also not be very happy. I would think, I've done so much. I've worked so much. But why? Like, he does this for my younger brother, but what is with me? And this is also what we read here about the older brother. He defines himself about his performance. He says, yeah, I've done so much. But Jesus tells the story also, and we can see this in the reaction of the father, that the performance is not the important thing. Like, the father has a very interesting response when it comes to this accusation of the son. The son then goes against the father, and he asks him, why do you do this? And then the father says, son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad. For this your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. So what the father is telling here is that this is not about work, not about obedience, not about how much you perform, but about the relationship. And this applies to both of them. The younger son, he went away from God, from the father. He totally dismissed all relationships, but he came back. The older son seemed to be there, but it also seems that he did not really understand what it actually means to live in the presence of the Father, to live there. And to take this picture again, like the younger son went away and then he came back. But what happened with the older son? For me, the older son, it looks like this. The older son, he made his own cage inside the territory of the father. He had this work on the field, and he did this, and he was so happy about it. He was thinking, I am right, because I am with my father, I do nothing wrong here. I tell everything what the father says. But he actually made this area smaller, which the father has given to him, and so also the relationship with the father was somehow broken. Yeah, it seems that older son and father also don't have the good relationship. And this is also what a lot of religions do. And this is some very also important warning which Jesus has. A lot of religions, they think you can have a relationship with God if you're a really obedient person, if you perform a lot, if you do a lot, then you have then you're on the safe side. Just do a lot. Yeah, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Try to fulfill all the rules. Try to make all of these things. The Bible calls it Gesetzlichkeit. If you think you can have a good relationship with God just because you do something and you do it right. And the persons who lived when Jesus was there 2,000 years ago, they had also an issue with this. And the problem with this idea is, you can try to really live very, very correctly. Do everything right. Be always nice to your neighbor. Be always like a good person. Never fail in some regards. Never try to be a bad person. But if you think like this, and you define yourself about this question, it happens that you build yourself a prison in an area which God actually has made for you, because God has allowed us to live in His presence and also to enjoy His presence. He wants a relationship with us, not consisting of obedience, but He wants us that we can live in a place of freedom and joy and happiness. Adam and Eve, they could live in this Garden of Eden in the beginning, and they were allowed to do everything they want, beside one thing, but they did this one thing. And this is the same with the God of the Bible. He has given us rules, yes, and it's important also to fulfill His rules and also to try to live according to them, but not to make extra rules and to define yourself over these rules. And what then happens is also sometimes that people who live this kind of way, who live a religious life which is just based on obedience, they end up like this. They think they're in God's presence, but actually there are also some parts which are outside of their life. And so sometimes, and by time, it's this little person is moving to this side, but they don't realize. And this is what the Bible also wants to tell us. There are two things you can misunderstand about God. The first thing is, which you can misunderstand, is that there's no way how to get to know God. Like, you are too sinful. You have done too much wrong. And to this person, the story tells, no, we can come back to God. And later, when we read more into the Bible, we will also understand why. Because Jesus Himself died for our sins. And He opened the way to God so that we can come back to Him. And we have also sinned against God. We have done some shameful things to God because of our sin. But we can come back to Him. There is this way open. So if you are afraid of God, if you think that, maybe I'm just too bad for God, then the good news of the Bible is, and also what Jesus wants to tell with the story, no, you can come back. God is waiting for you. It's not just you can come back, He's inviting you with open arms, like He has invited the Father. But maybe you're also one of this, like, older son, thinking that you think, I'm better than the other people, I do everything right, I am living in a good way. And then the story tells, no, don't define yourself about your deeds. You also need God's grace. Both need God's grace. The one who went away needed God's grace. The one who stayed there needed also God's grace. And both needed. The law, like the borders of this garden or presence of God, is important. It's there to protect us. That's also what the Bible says. But when we start to define ourselves about this, that's a problem, and it can also lead to bad impacts. That is the result of the story. So, when we feel that we came out, we can come back to God. Maybe you think, okay, that sounds very theoretical. There's a lot also you can know more about this topic. I want to close with a Bible verse which Jesus also said, a statement from Jesus, where He was not speaking in a parable, but speaking very directly. He told once about Him and about God, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." That's the invitation which Jesus tells us. Come to me, come to Jesus, and you will find rest. You will find a yoke. A yoke is like used to guide animals in a certain direction, but the yoke is easy. It is not something really, really heavy and hard you cannot master. Gambling does not make happy at the end. Either the one way or the other way. As I said, most lotto winners lose their money at the end. But latestly when we die, we can take nothing home. We can take nothing, to the grave. But the relationship with God is something which can really make happy, because it has some perspective also beneath the death and beneath all the problems which are here in this world. And if you have some questions about this, feel free to ask a staff member or also myself this night. There are also home groups where you can dig in deeper into the topic. and we will now just sing another song, a very old song which somehow impresses this. It introduces Jesus as our friend, who has reconciled us with God, who has paid the price so that we can come back to God, and who is the way which leads us back to God and back to happiness, also true happiness.